Hey guys, if you're interested in checking out a video version of the show, please visit the Lowkey Geek channel on YouTube. There you can not only catch the video version of the podcast, but you can also check out my other projects and short form video that I produce. You can find a link in the description. Otherwise, sit back, relax, and enjoy the show. Hey! Oh my god, are we live? Is this working?
Hello? Rene, can you
What's
hear me?
I could hear you perfectly fine. What's going on, Blake?
Yo, it is good to be talking to you live in person. Normally we do like 30 takes of our episodes, which is why they're so concise.
Right.
And we just practice, practice. Now we're just
What's going
off the
on?
cuff for the first time ever.
Right. No, this is a lot of fun. Hello everyone. At least those of you who decided to catch us directly on time. Um, we are just testing this live streaming for the very first time. Something that we kind of concocted earlier in the week, saying given that Avatar was such a big release, and Blake and I started talking about. Remember back in the day when they did those midnight first time showings? Like it was like a Thursday, well, technically Friday midnight, early morning, right? And then obviously Blake pointed out, well, movie theaters need more money and all that stuff, and so they started moving up that. They used to call it the preview night. So they started moving up the showings of the preview nights to like 7 o'clock, sometimes 9 o'clock. Now you get to see movies at like 4 or 5 o'clock in the afternoon on a Thursday, and
Right.
it's still considered a preview night showing or whatever the case is. But yeah, so we kind of came up with this like, hey, let's do like a midnight movie time kind of live stream of Avatar, and we could do like a live review and reaction of the movie because Blake and I just saw it not that long ago because it's a over 3 hour long movie.
I literally came
um,
straight home and then was like, all right, we got to talk. It's almost
right.
midnight.
Exactly. Yeah. So definitely interesting. But yeah, thank you for those of you who are watching right now. If you are new to the channel and you're new to seeing these two knuckleheads over here on video, Blake and I we do a movie time podcast that is goes live once a week. It's usually pre-recorded, and we usually talk about whatever the latest movie that came out was that week. Um, this time, obviously, we're talking about the big movie release of the week, which is Avatar Way of Water, which is the last big movie of the year. This
Mhm.
is like the last big blockbuster film, and interestingly enough, there's no competition. Usually, in a normal year, pre-pandemic and all that stuff, you have at least Disney has something out around this time that's major. Maybe if the year was right, you have a Marvel film or a Star Wars film. Back in the day, Harry Potter used to be big around this time. But right now, Avatar is the only movie that's really happening at the moment. So obviously, there's a lot of people that have been eagerly anticipating this movie to come out. It's been 13 years in the making, kind of. And it's James Cameron's follow up. I mean, he hasn't done anything since the last Avatar. So his life has been fully dedicated in this franchise. And yeah, so obviously, we are dying to talk about it. So if you like what you see, I'm going to go through the YouTube spiel right about now. Obviously, it doesn't cost you a thing. Hit that like button, subscribe to the channel if you haven't done so already. If you are looking for an audio format of this episode, maybe you want to listen to it later on. Maybe you can't join in on the full fun or whatever the case is. Just search for Lowkey Geek on your podcast platform of choice where you can download this episode and many others. The super chats are live. So if you would like to have your question, if you want to engage and ask a question and you want your question read live on the air, you could use the super chat function to do so. Not necessary because we will, obviously spend some time at the end of the episode to review some of the comments that may have come in. But if you want your question read immediately or as fast as possible, then definitely use the super chat function there. So with that being said, let's start off. We'll start non-spoilers because maybe there's some people who are tuning in just to see our initial reactions of the movie and all that kind of stuff like that. So let's start off non-spoilers, and we could also talk about kind of our theater experience, which we usually like to do. I had an interesting experience in my theater today, and it
Oh
wasn't
no,
so much. Yeah, it wasn't so much of
that can
like
be
the
bad.
audience. It was the usher who checked your ticket and all that. He was extremely informative. And I've never seen this guy before at this theater that I usually go to. But basically, what he did is that he saw the movie I was checking out, and he said, "All right, you're in theater 7, blah blah blah, this and that. By the way, some interesting facts. Did you know that James Cameron built a something
No.
something ton tank, kind of harkening back to his Titanic days for some of the underwater scenes in this movie? And he is working on a part 3, 4, and 5 of this movie." I'm like, do tell, really? And it's like, enjoy your film and all that stuff. I
So
was
you
like,
went to like the local video store of the 1980s, but the 2022 movie theater experience where he thought, you don't have Google. I'm the expert
right.
on the movies here, and I'm going to let you in. Also, if you like this film, can I recommend this?
Yeah.
What in the world? That's funny. I've
Yeah.
never experienced that. And they're always so dispassionate, just like, yeah, here
Right.
you go. I don't care.
Yeah.
Or I can't wait to see it, but it's opening night and I'm working, so I can't.
Right,
Interesting.
exactly. Yeah, it
Okay.
was it was
Okay.
it was actually really, I gave him props because,
Okay.
he was very lively, and he had something different to tell every other person. Yeah,
Oh,
so he would tell another person a different set of facts or whatever the case was.
oh, fascinating. So
Yeah,
this person is so excited. They're new to the job. They're so excited and they're like studying on it. Like, okay, I know how I'm going to do this. I'm going to
right.
impress every. So you're low key geek. This is more like a high key geek situation. I
Right.
love it.
Yeah.
You have competition. That's what I'm hearing.
I
I
mean,
hope this
hey,
person doesn't have a YouTube channel because they might
I
be
hope
going
not.
live any minute now.
Well, if this person has a YouTube channel, I'm sure he's not getting the attention that he's getting right now like I am. So, I guess we should, so something interesting happened that I kind of unveiled to Blake, and he kind of unveiled and uncovered more stuff that I have not even fathomed to even look into. So, on the channel, if you are a regular, and I'm sure you've seen it uploaded about 5 days ago, there was a Japanese press conference for Avatar: The Way of Water that they kind of had, and they're doing the press tours, right? So I know they did one in Korea. I think they did one in China. The global premiere was done in London. I think they also had an event in LA. I'm not sure if they had anything in New York because I didn't hear anything about it. But in Japan, it caught my eye because on YouTube I follow this Japanese news outlet, and they had the full video of the press conference with all the interviews and all that. But the interesting thing I thought they did was that it was held in some aquarium somewhere. I'm not sure exactly the location, but it was held in an aquarium where they had a dolphin show. Basically, it was like a quick, maybe 1 minute presentation where they had dolphins in this pool doing tricks and stunts and all that stuff like that. And you had, everyone in attendance who was James Cameron, Zoe Saldana, Sam Worthington, Sigourney Weaver, and one of the producers. And they were watching this show, enjoying the entertainment, clapping along. James Cameron even made a little quick comment saying, "Oh, that was so entertaining. I wish next time I could be part of this show because I think dolphins are the most intelligent and beautiful creatures," and all that stuff like that. Not, I guess, realizing the irony behind all of this because obviously, dolphins in captivity is a sour subject. It stems even from animal cruelty back in like the circus days and all that stuff like that. Plus, it's in a country that is unfortunately known for having issues with accidental dolphin killings, or maybe purposely. I don't know the facts. I'm not, a guy who knows everything about that stuff, but it's been documented, and there's a lot more people out there who are very familiar with that stuff. So I would say maybe 3 days ago, tons of comments started flowing into the video. And it was a bunch of people who were just like, what is going on here? This has got to be a big joke. Doesn't James Cameron and everyone there realize that this is wrong? And the irony behind this and the movie that's supposed to be like supporting, free animal living and, all the opposition against animal cruelty and hunting of animals and, benefiting, profiting off of this stuff, and it just has been nonstop. It's been flowing in and flowing in. So Blake had no idea about this, and I told him about it literally minutes before we went live, and he did a quick search. Apparently, the video has been
Yep.
making the news rounds.
Yep.
So
you are linked in some, you're sourced in some, and some of them just have your YouTube channel in the middle of
right.
an article about this controversy.
Right. So I'm going to share some of the websites here because I find this extremely fascinating and really, I had no idea that this was going to happen. But I'm apparently on the New York Post. Here's a title. It says James Cameron slammed for cruel dolphin stunt at Avatar 2 premiere. If you scroll down, these are screenshots from my video. You could see because it has my name on it along with everything there. So it writes up about, what happened in the video, and they had an interview with if I read down here, Rick O'Barry, who was featured in the documentary The Cove, talking about it. The World Animal Protection Group said the stunt was confoundingly out of step with Cameron's reputation. I'm on Yahoo News, so you could see here the headline is Avatar 2 Way of Water Stunt features live captive dolphins. It even does a video transcript of the video itself.
Oh, wow.
And if you
Wow.
just, and then again, you look at the screenshot, this is directly taken from my video. Then I'm also on Yahoo News in Australia. Avatar 2 premiere sparks outrage, cruel dolphin stunt slammed. Again, they feature screenshots from my video and they link my video directly. And I think it's official. I'm also on the dailymail.com. Where the headline is James Cameron sparks animal welfare fury by holding Avatar 2 press conference at a dolphin show in Japan. And this article just floods the article with screenshots from my video, along with also linking my video directly. So, wow, I had no idea.
We're in spoiler-free territory, but to quote
Yeah.
Avatar 2, water connects all things, and so does Low-Key Geek's dolphin video. And
Yeah.
now you're the king of dolphin content on Geek
apparently
YouTube.
Yeah.
Congratulations.
Dolphin activism and awareness and all that stuff.
I'm looking at dolphinproject.com, has an article with your video just right there, smack dab on the middle. So congratulations.
Thank you.
You're the face of something that I don't know if you signed up for it, but now all your videos have to be dolphin content.
At least dolphin friendly, right?
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. So I'll say this because I'm sure, maybe there are some people who will eventually watch this and they want to hear my take on it all and all that. And I did pin a comment to the video stating, because I was seeing a lot of comments slamming Japan and they're attacking Japan directly for something like this. So in my comment that I pinned, I said, I understand the frustration and disappointment in the irony behind all of this. But people have to keep in mind that there are companies involved in organizing such things. You have your marketing teams, you have your PR firms, and you have the distributors, right? So I would say they're very much to blame for agreeing to do something like this, right? Now, in slight defense of James Cameron, I'm pretty sure he may have no idea as to what they're doing because he's just going along for the tour in promoting the movie, right? Sometimes they are walking into a situation that they have no knowledge about. Now, maybe they kind of broke the news to him prior or maybe minutes before walking into it and all that. Who knows? I'm not there. We're all not there. We don't know what happened. So I'll say that, yeah, it's very ironic. Obviously, I am pro, animal rights. I am not a big fan of, circuses and going to when I was a little kid, I used to go to SeaWorld until I realized exactly what was happening. And obviously, I haven't stepped into SeaWorld in ages, right, since then. So I understand the disappointment. I understand the frustration behind it all. But the one thing I will say is that a lot of people are saying that they are not going to watch the movie because of this. Again, understandably so. But what I will say is that by not watching the movie, there are thousands of other people who've worked on the film. And by not going to watch this movie, you are not supporting all their hard work and efforts going behind this. That they had nothing to do with whatever PR promotional stunt that has been going on. So if you had every intention to watch the movie because maybe you're a fan of the franchise or it looked interesting to you, just keep that in mind because a lot of these people depend on the box office numbers, the revenue, and all that stuff like that to kind of give them nods of the work that they did. It helps them with future work and coming up, and it just helps with their paychecks and all that. And just like how they used to have the disclaimers about bootlegging movies and all that, and how you're taking tons of money away from all these people who keep working diligently on these films. Same thing goes for something like that. But of course, if you want to make a statement and your disapproval, best way to do so is but through your money and through your wallet, right? And by not supporting a movie like this, that maybe that message will be put across there. But just keep in mind that you are also hurting a bunch of other people who had nothing to do with any of this stuff. So that's my quick stance on it. Blake, do you have anything you want to say?
No, because I know we can't harp on this. We gotta
Yeah,
we gotta talk about this movie. But just to be clear, you are anti-dolphin, and you wish they were
totally.
all in captivity. Yeah, and if you like that stuff, this movie, we're not doing spoilers yet, but this movie has a lot of war scenes set in the water, and some things go down. But we have plenty of time to get into all that.
Yeah, no, absolutely. So yeah, so that's I just wanted to address that real quick. Again, especially since I'm making the news rounds there, so I'm pretty sure this will eventually be maybe clipped out somewhere or somehow. But with that being said, let's talk about the movie. So, well, I mentioned my brief movie theater experience. I think overall, my audience, it was maybe 60% capacity. And this was like what,
Oh,
5 o'clock. So this is
okay.
really early. This is very
Yeah.
early. But it sounds like in people enjoyed the film. It sounds like people really enjoyed it. It's a long movie, so a lot of people were coming in and out, going to the bathroom, maybe refilling their drinks and their popcorn and all that stuff. So obviously that's to be expected for a long movie like this. But people were engaged. I mean, every time something happened that was like major, I heard people gasping, maybe laughing at some of the comedic moments. I think I heard someone kind of crying at one point at some of the emotional scenes, especially towards the end. So yeah, so it sounds like people were definitely engaged in this film. I mean, I felt like I was binging a series on Netflix because it's just so long, but I
Mhm.
did not at one point feel like it was dragging because I felt like I was also engaged all throughout
Yeah.
myself.
Oh yeah.
What about you?
Oh
How
yeah.
did you feel watching?
Yeah, so I did the 3D IMAX
Hmm.
715, and it was very full. In fact,
Wow.
when I went to get a seat, there was only seats on the front row remaining, which, trust you me, I love that. I know that
Yeah.
that's controversial. All my friends hate it because I'm like, "Are you sure you don't want to sit on the front row?" Whenever we go to the movies, I genuinely enjoy being on the front row. I like being so immersed in the movie, and this is a particularly good movie for that. If you're into that sort of thing, if you're a weirdo like me, I've got the 3D glasses on, and I'm just up, and you can see the whole thing. And it's kind of like being really close to the concert. Like you might not be able to see the drummer and the singer at the same time, but
Right.
I do enjoy being fully into it. And so then, especially with 3D, there's not someone with their hat in front of me, kind of like blocking the screen. The first one to get the image as it bounced back off the projector. I think that's how screens work. I'm not a scientist, but there's no interruption, and it's just, especially with the 3D, where there's a couple moments, and I haven't been impressed by 3D since the last Avatar, since
Mhm.
it kicked off a 3D fad. There's one where there's a couple times I literally did the like, whoa, that feels like if something's kind of coming at you, and it just has a little bit more punch to it when you're up close.
Yeah.
Um, Fully full theater, people were super into it. literally
Nice.
from the opening moments with like laughter throughout. It seems I didn't even think were particularly funny, but like the is he a colonel, a general? I think he's a colonel, and he's literally like saying little throwaway lines and just being kind of a
Mm,
jerk, and people are laughing at those like as if this is a full out comedy. And then at the end of the screening, everyone's clapping, including myself. Um, I had a great time at Avatar 2, and being in the audience. This is one of those movies. Seeing it early on is definitely the way to go
yeah.
for this kind of movie, where you've got a lot of people in there. Because in a week or two, it'll be a lot of people who are kind of like half fans, like, oh yeah, I remember the first one. I'm kind of into it,
Mm,
and it won't be nearly as engaging. The reason why we're doing this at midnight, which I'm kind of curious on, like West Coast people, if you know, if uh, what time people are seeing it, because there's showings all the way up till almost 2 a.m. out here
yeah.
in New York,
Mhm,
because it's so when I went through all the, at least the 3D IMAX ones, they were all full except this one,
mhm.
or it was like midnight something. Um, but I always liked, that's what I always loved about those midnight showings. It was people who really were dedicated to be there. They said, you know what, I'm going to be tired at work tomorrow because I'm so hyped for this movie. My favorite one all time was the third Star Wars movie, from whatever that would be, like '03. But it
Oh,
was literally the
from the
final of the
prequel?
original trilogy. Yeah, from the prequels. Thank you. That's the word. And literally at our 24 screen AMC, every single screen was sold out. And so the entire place, like the whole mall and that where I'm from in Oklahoma, the entire mall and all 24 theaters, it was just Star Wars geeks and people who were into that. Like, it was intense. So that was really, really fun. It's rare to have now the night before, and there's a lot of screenings at 7, 8, 9 p.m., etc. It's rare to have one room fully packed with all that energy, and tonight felt like that. The room was definitely buzzing with excitement for people who've been waiting a long time,
Yeah.
since what's now again the number one movie of all time, the original Avatar, since they re-released it and it took back the number one spot from
Right.
Endgame.
Yeah.
Wild. Yeah, people were excited for good reason.
Yeah. No, I also saw it in 3D because obviously I saw the original in 3D, and at that time, and a lot of people were saying this, that this was like one of the best 3D experiences at the movies that you could ever have, because it was made for that. It was made for like that amazing visual effects and all that. Um so I figured might as well do it again for this one. What were you gonna say?
I saw the original 8 times in theaters. That's
Wow.
how much I enjoyed the 3D, get lost in it, and the that whole, like, it's transporting you to another world. I
Uh-huh.
do like art house cinema. I also like escapism quite a bit.
Sure.
And
Yeah.
so literally I was in college at the time, and it was I was responsible for a good chunk of that number one all-time box office budget
Wow.
for
That's
sure.
crazy.
This is a good
No,
one
that's
for the
crazy.
3D. Yeah.
Yeah, no, I mean, and this one definitely was like visually stunning. It was again, 3D is the way to go. Movie theater is the way to go. Cuz
Oh yeah.
uh I haven't watched the original Avatar since the time I saw it in the theater. And then leading to this new one this week, I decided, let me rewatch the first one on Disney Plus, which is a restored, like I think they kind of like restored it to like 4K and all that stuff like that. They use, I think, the original uh IMAX film, so you don't see the bars on the top and bottom. It really fills the whole screen. And it looks gorgeous, but it doesn't look exactly how I remember it, obviously, in the theater,
No.
because it's just
No.
a different experience altogether. But now seeing it in 3D again, it reminded me of how gorgeous 3D can be if done right and if done really purposefully, right? I think a lot of during the whole 3D trend that happened several years ago, I felt like a lot of movies were kind of forced to be 3D. So it was like a lot of uh, production that was done after the movie that to kind of like format it to be able to be in
Right.
3D, and you could tell it wasn't that great. But
Yeah.
this is like done especially for that. I mean, I could only imagine how it looked in IMAX. But 3D, it just looked amazing. It was gorgeous. And like you said, there will be moments like things are floating in front of your face and you're just like, whoa, where's that coming from? And mixed in with the sound and everything. It was really, really well done. So definitely this is one of those rare movies that I would say you have to go out in the theater to watch it because it is meant for that movie experience, that old time movie experience, which we don't really get a lot with a lot of movies these days, and even some of like the Marvel films and all that, I would even say like maybe you could just go ahead and watch that at home eventually, but not this one. Like this one, it's
Yeah.
it's meant to be
No.
experienced in the theater because you really get the full, visual experience, and it's really, really, honestly breathtaking, and all that.
I remember with the original one, it was part of the question, like, yes, it's made a lot at the box office, but how are this DVD and Blu-ray sales going to be? And I think
Mm-hmm.
that was actually part of why 3D televisions became a thing, was just because there
Mm-hmm.
was enough of a need for, okay, now we have this fad that Avatar can
Oops.
at least get close to approximating that.
Mm-hmm.
I remember watched it a screen a smaller, and it just wasn't the same at all. Just pretty kind of pointless compared to once you had the theater experience. So yeah, maybe a year from now you watch the original, this movie on a normal TV screen, and it'll be an enjoyable blockbuster type movie. But if you've seen it on the theater, it couldn't possibly compare. This is literally meant for that. And James Cameron, this is a very James Cameron movie, and he's more of a technician as a director than almost anything else.
Mm-hmm.
The amount of high quality special effects, which not all blockbuster movies can say, this one was very immersive. I never, basically never was taken out of the moment because, like, oh, that looks corny or dumb. And it also did a really good job of playing with the physics, which is something I think James Cameron is really good at. And kind of like, I think of Titanic, where you're in the theater and you're looking up and there's this giant physical object and you're feeling it and
Mm-hmm.
reacting to, like, oh my god, the water is filling up, now it's falling, now this is breaking, the sounds are so intense. The man makes movies that are meant to be enjoyed in the theater. This one especially, there's a few scenes where the physics of what's happening on the screen and uh, made it where the 3D and the movie theater absolutely.
Right. Yeah, no, definitely. So that being said, I mean, I think going into this, we kind of expected it to be a visually stunning experience. If it wasn't, then what the hell was he working on in the last 13 years and all that, right? But let's talk about the movie itself. I think I'll be the first to admit that the original Avatar movie, albeit very stunning visually and with the technical achievements and all that, story wise, it wasn't anything that really stuck with me like in the long run. I was like, oh, that was a fun, entertaining movie. But obviously, in the last 13 years, I never went back to revisit it until this week, right? Because I just never felt the need to. Because I mean, some of the story is very rehashed. It's your typical colonizer kind of thing where you have this group of people who are looking to pillage and go through a village because they have a resource that they need, and the story focuses on the indigenous people who are trying to survive and protect their land and all that stuff like that. It's Fern Gully, it's Dances with Wolves, it's all that stuff, right?
Pocahontas, throw it in
Yeah,
there. Yep.
yeah. So it's all that.
The first
And
one isn't that deep. Let's be very
no,
honest. I
no,
When I enjoyed it and went to the theaters 8 times, it was more of the visual experience and
yeah,
the immersive action and all that stuff. Absolutely.
yeah. But I think a lot of people who were at the right age at the right time, this was probably their blockbuster movie. This was like their Jurassic Park, right? This was like their
Jaws.
movie, their Jaws,
Yeah.
whatever the case is. So there's a lot of fans who are, eagerly anticipating this movie to come out, can't wait for it, and everything like that. So going into it, and seeing the trailers that came out, I was kind of, on the fence about it. I'll be, if you see my trailer reactions on the channel, I was just like, it looks nice, but the story, I have no idea what's going on, and I don't even know if it's going to be that appealing or whatever the case is. Now, having a chance to watch it, I will say that I was very entertained all throughout the movie. For a movie that is what, 3 hours and 15
3:15.
minutes? Yeah.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
was it had me engaged through the whole time.
Yep.
There wasn't any moment where I thought it was dragging. I never checked my phone once, which is kind of rare these days. I never looked at the time or whatever the case is like that, because everything that was happening on screen was so engaging enough that it got my attention all throughout. Now, there are a lot of story beats that are somewhat repeated from the first movie. And some of the stuff was also kind of predictable. But and to be quite honest, there's a lot of moments throughout the movie that nothing's happening. It's kind of like one of those situations where you're just on along for the ride, and it's like a slice of life kind of scenario where you're just
Right.
following people doing what they do, right?
They're
But with
doing
that
like
being
world building and getting
right,
you into, okay, this is a totally different planet, a totally different world. I think a
right,
lot of movies that are set in a place that you're not familiar with, and partially they're kind of like showing off and getting you into it, but it
right.
also makes sense to me, especially when there's one character in particular, which we're not in spoiler territory, but there's one character in particular who their whole deal is kind of like connecting with that planet,
Hmm.
and they're showing they're showing that character just interacting with the water, the sand, the things like that. That in some ways that character gets to be an audience surrogate, because I am also like, okay, how does this work? We're watching the beautiful luminescent fish swim in a certain way, and how long is this character holding their breath? And there's a few like basic science questions that I'm curious about, that
Hmm.
they're kind of answering just by showing, rather than, and I genuinely prefer that too. If it was just someone going, well, here's how it works, everyone, listen up, and then they give a lecture, and instead of, so yeah, there's definitely a decent bit of world building. I was also engaged all throughout it, despite that. The 3.5 hours, like you said, didn't feel that long to me. So I
Yeah.
didn't mind that so much, as far as the world building stuff goes.
No, definitely not. And again, it's a unique situation because, again, without spoiling anything, we are being transported to another part of the planet that they're on. And we are meeting new people, right? We're meeting like a new village and all that stuff. So we have to learn about this village and how they do their stuff and how they live their ways and everything like that, and how it coincides with the people that we're already familiar with. And then, of course, there's always going to be that threat from the outsiders, right? Again, that seems to be the common theme. So, how is that going to come into play now based off of what happened in the last movie? So with all that being said, even though there were moments of the movie that there's nothing that really happened, when stuff really did happen, it was like all on. It was full on in your face and all that stuff. And the action scenes were very intense and very well done. You didn't know which way it was going to go sometimes. You didn't know who was going to come out of it alive or whatever the case is. And that is also very James Cameron, especially, you look at his, Terminator movies and all that. He does that stuff really, really well. And it lived, I think, if anything, I would definitely say it lived up to the hype that had going into this week.
Yeah.
Visually stunning. I would even say surpassing the original film when it
Yeah.
comes to the visual effects and all that.
Yeah. It's crazy to
But
say because that was so
right,
groundbreaking at the time. Better.
right.
Yeah.
But again, you would expect it to, because again, this is 13 years after the fact. Technology has improved since then and all that. But it was so, one of the things I said about the original movie, that I always used to compare it to watching like um, CG cutscenes in a video game, or watching like a full CG animated movie. Now looking at this, you could really see how seamless everything looks, how very clean everything looks. Everything is performance capture, right? So you have the actual actors, with I'm sure there was body suits and balls all over the place like that, acting out the scenes and everything. But I felt like it was so flawless and seamless, more so this time around than it was in the original. And it was just really gorgeous. Now, added to this, it's more world building, like you said, more character building, because again, we're introduced to a lot of different new people this time around. And also reintroduced to some people that we thought we wouldn't see, return from the first one, which was
Hmm.
very, very interesting.
Hmm.
And the way that they handled that, I thought was also pretty fascinating. So overall, and I said it before, didn't have that much high expectations going into this movie. I have every right to eat my own words, and I'm going to do that. So I said, like, this movie has everything that it was promising it to have, and it was thoroughly entertaining and enjoyable. And I never thought I would say this, but I'm actually looking forward to where this is going to go after all this.
Seriously, for real.
So yeah, so again, it's the testament and of James Cameron and never doubting James Cameron, right?
Don't doubt Uncle Jim, no matter
Because
what.
he
Yep.
always brings it. But yeah, what are your spoiler-free thoughts about the movie as a whole there?
Yeah, I want to ask your box office prediction of how you think this ends up. I think
Sure.
that's something that's very interesting with this movie.
Yeah.
But dude took his time making this one, and something that people say about James Cameron is like he's not going to put out an unfinished product. He'll
Mm,
make sure he gets it exactly how it needs to be. And I'm guessing there's a lot of editing and in the post production for this movie, probably a lot of that. Um, I do remember, and I'm glad you're willing to eat your words. I 'cause after especially my Top Gun Maverick debacle earlier this year, where I was doubting it, and then ended up being just a box office monster. And this one, I'm assuming that these are going to be the top two box office movies at the end of the year: Top Gun Maverick and Avatar 2, both these long-awaited sequels. I remember talking about this one months ago, and the concern being the old one has that video game graphics problem, which
yep.
I saw it 8 times in theaters. I bought into it, but you have to suspend disbelief at least that much.
Yeah.
And this one, there are definitely times where I'm going like, okay, this doesn't feel 100% real. So I did have to suspend disbelief a little bit. That said, the concern was if they use the exact same graphics as '08, and you want to continue the story to where if you put one movie then another movie and it would make total sense, like nothing is different at all. Like
Mhm.
first season of Family Guy versus second season where just all the characters look different.
It's like so different. Yeah.
Um, yeah, that kind of problem. But no, it felt pretty seamless. And then the other question when they re-released it was like, okay, are they going to go back over and fix some of that stuff? But no, it didn't seem to be much change. But I would say this one definitely looks better and cleaner. The biggest thing going into it with the box office expectations, the cost of these movies, how many sequels are they going to actually be able to pull off, etc. I think this one executed its mission.
Mhm.
I think the question is it going to be equal or better in that visually immersive action movie way? And then does it get rid of some of the problems of the first one where the story is pretty damn simple, which honestly doesn't really hurt, especially if you want to go after an international box office market.
Yeah.
um, to have a story that doesn't require just a ton of subtitles if you're in another country, or doesn't require you to know a lot of pop culture references in a specific part of the world or something like that. To
Mhm.
have the first one, part of its success is because it's so universally understandable and accessible. This one, I think, still has that, where it's dealing with some pretty basic themes, but it is different. It's an evolution. We're not doing spoilers yet, but like, if the first one is mainly just the colonization story. This one is dealing with things like family
Yeah.
instead, like adding a layer of that. Um, so, to my mind, the story was another one or two levels more complex and more interesting,
Mhm.
and it gets to do connecting the dots from this movie to the old one. And so you're seeing, oh, this character changed over time, or now this character from the old one is now interacting with this character from the new one in another way. And then similar like the recent Star Wars movies, you get to like double up on the characters where now somebody has a kid. And so now the way they interact with their father is now how they're interacting with their things like that. So it is definitely more complex just off of that fact alone. But the story I wouldn't be surprised if they said, okay, we're going to make a few more of these. We really need to iron out this story part here and make it more richer and more interesting. I think that they did that on this one. So for for my money, I think it's going to succeed in the box office way. I think the word of mouth will be positive. When you leave an opening night screening and everybody's clapping, last time I saw it was Top Gun Maverick, and at that point I was like, okay, this thing's going to do numbers. There was some quote I read offhand that it was James Cameron saying something like, "This needs to make $2 billion," and I that's just so much money. I can't I can't fathom this flopping. I'm curious if it goes to the number one all time spot. If it's because the standard for James Cameron movies after Titanic, Avatar, that it's just so high. But from the one screening that I saw tonight, the opening night, I wouldn't be surprised if we got in that territory at least, top 5 all-time box office, something like that. Because
Yeah. Well,
it did what it needed to do.
it's there's only one thing that is kind of against this movie, and that is there's still a lot of people who haven't gone back to the movie theaters yet. Unfortunately, we still have issues with, the thing that's going around the world right now, and I heard cases are going up again. I don't want to say it because again, I might get dinged and demonetized for giving, information about whatever it is. But that's something that's still, a factor that a lot of people are taking into account, whether or not they want to go out and watch a movie or even just go out and do anything with their family and all that. So that's one thing. Two, I felt like the first Avatar was such lightning in the bottle, where it was just one of those things where it's like we have never seen anything like that prior. So that was like a huge achievement and all that. Now, does this take that to the next level? It does in certain ways, but again, I feel like it's also still similar to stuff that we've seen, in the past or whatever the case is like that. Now, the one thing positive that this has going for them is that it was actually approved to release in China, which a lot of more recent blockbusters have not
Mm,
because of certain controversial scenes or whatever the case is, maybe some dialogue that the studio doesn't want to get rid of or whatever the case is. So the fact that this is having a China release could help tremendously because we all know that a lot of movies, especially American movies, are finding huge success in China, and that is really taking into account big portions of their box office revenue or whatever, and all that stuff. Now, I know they're having their own issues over there with what's ever going on, so I don't know if that's also going to limit whoever goes to the theaters in China to watch this. But I think for, like you said before, for a global audience and the fact that the story is simple but complex, but not so much so that a global audience can't follow and understand it. That's going to appeal to a lot of people. And then I think, like you said, word of mouth is eventually going to spread like wildfire. People are going to say, you need to check this movie out because it looks, one, gorgeous and you have to experience it in the theater. And then two, it's actually very entertaining, and it's easy to follow and you find yourself, glued to the screen there watching everything unfold. So I think box office wise it's going to do well. Now, will it get to the level of the first Avatar? I think time will tell. I think the predictions going into this weekend is that I think at least domestically it may be tracking for maybe at least 100 million, and I think globally it's tracking to be 300 million or whatever the case is. Um, who knows? I mean, things could change within a day, but I also do feel like this is going to have legs, and I think,
yeah.
again, with no other competition out right now, and the majority of people who wanted to already see Wakanda Forever has already seen it and maybe saw it a second time, and now they're looking for something new, right? So this is
Right.
the new boy on the street, and I think a lot of people are really going to be wanting to go check this out, especially when we are in the holiday season right now. Families are together. Hey, let's all go watch Avatar, right? Because I'm
Yeah.
pretty sure that is a big conversation to be had there. So yeah,
The,
so it's gonna be really interesting for sure.
Yeah, I think because there's a few questions, and different movies have to deal with these problems differently of what time of year they're released and what that bump looks like. Is it a slow burn, word of mouth, a little engine that could situation? This isn't that. I think part of the problem is people's minds were blown by Avatar 1, and that's why it did so well at the box office because I people like me just kept going back to say like I just want to experience that feeling again.
Hmm.
I don't know that it'll have the same. I'm curious about individuals doing repeat viewings because I did enjoy it a lot. I don't currently feel like, oh, I need to see that again to understand it, or oh, I got to take all my friends next weekend or something like that. We do see that with movies sometimes where it basically becomes like everyone's got to get everybody and go see it. This one might be more of a like you're talking about with the winter break coming up, people being off school, families going to the movies in groups. This will be an easy choice for a lot of it's always like, what's the lowest common denominator movie that uncle and nephew are both going to be okay with?
Right.
Um, I think the other factor is there are people who Avatar, the original, we have to say, did not age well. Its reputation over time from that first year got worse, and I've had like debates with people like, why did that happen? Is it because it was so popular and people just kind of want to say, "Oh, well, that's so popular, so therefore it's not cool, so now it's corny." And it actually sucked, even though I saw it 3 times in theaters and I really enjoyed it every time. But no, it sucks, and like I was dumb for liking it. Like I've heard people saying that, and like that's in the water around this movie. Almost like people feel like they got tricked by the special effects or something like that. So I think one version of the bump for this movie might be a week from now at happy hour, someone goes, "Oh, you saw the new Avatar? Was that good?" And then somebody goes, "Yeah, it was actually really good. I think you'll like it. You're not going to be disappointed. I don't want to." And then that person goes, "Okay, now I'll go see it." And they're kind of like doing not necessarily word of mouth, but just like letting someone else go see the movie. If you're not like the opening night person, I
Yeah.
have a feeling there will be a decent bit of people going like, "No, it's actually like I literally hit up my brother in that same tone because I think he had the like maybe I'll see it, maybe I won't. It's not gonna be like a must see for me. I was like, you should go see this one, you'll like it.
Yeah.
um so I think there'll be some bump from that, so it definitely has legs. I don't know that it'll have each person feeling like they loved it and need to go see it a bunch of times immediately, or I need to rewatch it to understand it. Like Christopher Nolan movies, they always get 2 watches and then usually no more after that. It's like, okay, I need to see this another time to understand it, and I'm not going back. Like different, especially blockbusters, just have different versions of that problem. I think this one, by that standard, doesn't do as well as the first because it isn't groundbreaking in the same way. But we'll see. The first one might get the momentum of those people who did love it so much and a new generation of people. I'm
Mhm.
curious to see how that turns out.
Well, I
Time will
think
tell.
yeah, I think that one thing fascinating about this movie, and it's based off of things that I've heard and read from people who've seen screenings and who, members of the Critics Association and the press and all that. A lot of them had similar sentiments where it's like, all right, the first movie was cool, but it wasn't anything that I ever wanted to go back and revisit. Then seeing this movie, they're like, okay, it got me. Now I can't wait to see more of this. And I feel like that's been a very common sentiment that I've been hearing and reading
Right.
a lot about recently. And I mean, look at myself. I was a moderate fan of the first one. I haven't
Hmm.
seen it again since the first time I saw it. I watched it again this week and I was like, okay, I get why people like this, but again, I'm watching it at home. So I'm not getting that same visual sensation with the 3D and all that stuff like that. But with the remastered version on Disney Plus, I'm like, okay, at least it still looks good.
Yeah.
Now seeing this and experiencing the new movie in the theater with the 3D and with the new world building and the new characters that we were introduced to, the generational shift in the movie with the characters, now focusing on a younger generation and all that stuff, which we could talk about more later. It's more fascinating, and now it's like, okay, now I'm rooting for other characters that I am newly introduced to. I'm curious as to how they're going to carry on and move forward. Plus, there's always still that potential threat that's still lingering around, right? So, with all that said, now I'm wondering, okay, what other parts of the planet are they going to
Yeah.
explore moving forward, right? We had the forest people, right, in the first one. Now we were introduced to the water people in this one. Again, that's not a spoiler. That's in the trailer right there.
It's called The Way of
Yeah,
Water.
yeah, the way of water. So we have that going on. So what other parts of the planet are we gonna be introduced to and all that? Is there a snow portion? Is there an
Oof.
underground portion? Like,
They're
I
not
don't
dressed
know.
for snow, Renee. I don't know if that's a good idea. It's like the Star Wars movie thing where any given movie will have like, okay, we've got the sand part, we got the snow part, we
Yep.
got the forest
Hmm.
part for sure.
Yeah.
Um, I hadn't thought about that too, because another thing which only slightly relates to Star Wars, but I was thinking about this movie and I was curious, like, are we going to see a toy? You know, like the new Matrix movie, and they've got like a character that's like, this is just going to be a present for the holidays, and that's the whole reason why
Hmm.
this little robot character exists, or the BB-8 thing, or whatever. Um, I didn't see that, but now that we're talking about it, there are kids in this movie,
Yeah.
which I'm not going to say anything else until we get closer to spoiler territory. But I could see that being making it a more family friendly movie than the first one was, to where, okay, I've got a 13-year-old and they really like that movie and they want to see it again. They've got a hero on screen. I honestly can't
Hmm.
say I wasn't able to relate to those characters as well as if I was a teenager, which I
Yeah.
think the characters are around that age, or something like that. I could see that also helping it with box office numbers, because once you get a family of four going versus just date night, or just the dudes or whatever, bro night at the movies,
Hmm.
which different movies have their own kind of vibes of what demographics they're going for. Probably pretty smart to expand it to include, someone could be represented on screen in at any given age demographic.
Right.
That
No,
might
definitely.
boost it.
Yeah. No, for sure. Like, and again, like in my showing today, there was at least two sets of families that went to see it. And there was like they were running 4 or 5 deep. And it's all generations. You had the parents, you had the like teenager, and you had like the probably grade schooler, right? So I saw that quite a bit going into this into my showing. And then as I was leaving, obviously there's a new set of people coming in to watch it, and I was seeing the same thing. So yeah, definitely the appeal there for this movie is going to be all over. Like it will appeal to young kids. I could see stuff appealing to teenagers, and definitely for adults. There's a lot of heavy storylines all throughout the movie that a lot of adults, especially parents, can fully relate to and
Oh yeah.
understand. One of the things that Zoe Saldana said on her press tour was that her, being a mother herself, she can relate to a lot of the stuff that Ney'tiri had to go through in this movie, and it really helped her kind of relate more to that character, and being able to act in that same way, because as a mom she would have to do the same thing with whatever situation arose and all that. But yeah, so I mean, I guess overall we both really thoroughly enjoyed the movie. It's definitely it was entertaining from beginning to end and all that. So I guess if you would like, we could spill into a little bit more spoiler talk, and we could talk more about the some specific moments all throughout the film. Again, a reminder to all of you watching. Again, thank you so much for tuning in. I see people coming in and out and all that stuff like that. If you would like to engage and you have a specific question and you want to ask us a question, and we will have it read out live. Definitely use the super chats there. We had a comment come in from somebody, Derpy501st. Basically, they said it's not better than the first film or unique like its predecessor, but it's pretty damn close. The best part of the film is the insane amount of world building, also far more visual spectacle than first. It does drag a little for me, but it's entertaining and satisfying by the end. James Cameron is said to have a 9-hour cut of this film. LMAO. That doesn't surprise me one bit. I'm pretty
No,
sure.
that's amazing. Amazing. I would have stayed if it was 9 hours long. I just would have had a couple more bathroom breaks, which, for the record, if I disappear at some point during this, it's because it was
Right.
a 3 hour and 15-minute movie.
Right.
9 hours. I love the idea of him just walking in the studio being like, okay, what do you think? You're
Yeah.
like, I'm sorry. What is this is all the rest of them? We're gonna release them what? This is for
it's
HBO, a
yeah, it's like we're good for
miniseries.
print on this one. Yeah.
Love it.
Oh man, yeah,
Good
that's
looks,
fantastic.
good looks, Derpy 501st. I very much appreciate that
Hell
intel.
yeah.
I just looked it up, and that is definitely a story that is out there about the 9 hour cut.
Oh
Release
man.
the 9 hour cut,
Let's do
please.
it. There you go. Hashtag release a 9 hour cut Avatar. Yeah. But yeah, let's talk about. So I'm gonna put up the spoiler alert warning up there again for those of you who don't want to be spoiled. We'd hate to see you leave, but we totally understand. You could definitely bookmark this, save it for later, and after you've watched it, you could come back and listen to us talk more about the film in depth and all that. But yeah, let's talk about some of the stuff that happened here. So I think one of the biggest questions I had, knowing and understanding that Stephen Lang was coming back, was how was he going to come back?
Yeah.
Because he bit it hard in the first movie, and he pretty much died there. So it was really interesting that the way they covered that was they saved his memories and all of that in the computer so that they could transfer the consciousness, I guess, into an avatar to carry on and move forward. Which was a very convenient, I think, for that to
Very,
be revealed.
very.
Yeah,
It's kind of like a singularity thing, right? Because it's not necessarily the same. I mean, it depends on your ship of Theseus uh, thesis theory.
yeah,
Where is it the same person? If because we're in spoiler territory, a
yeah,
very like to me the most pivotal scene where things start to go down. I'm jumping ahead a little, but he walks up and he sees his old body
yeah, yeah, yeah.
and the arrows that were used to kill him, and he's like having to reconcile that. So both are in the same room at the same time, I'm pretty sure. And then that is also when they run into the kids, and that's when
Right,
all the action kind of kicks off. Yeah.
right. Yeah. No, that was very fascinating how they covered that. And also, I was also interested as to Sigourney Weaver. Like, what role was she gonna play in this film? Now, I already knew that she was voicing a child, a younger version of somebody, but I wasn't exactly sure what that meant, right? And then
Sure.
understanding little backstory that we got, that I guess, and again, correct me if I'm wrong. So she was pregnant and she gave birth to this child that Jake and Ney'tiri adopted to take
Mhm.
care of while
Mhm.
her Navi body is still in kind of cryo suspended state, but they still don't know who the father is and how she got impregnated in the first place. Right?
So now we're getting into theory time. And this movie doesn't have a ton of like, oh, I need to read into the plot, but they don't do a ton of exposition
Yeah,
of who's the father, who's the mother of two of the characters.
right.
Stephen Lang's got a boy, it's presumed,
Right.
and we don't
Yes.
know who the mother was, to my
Right.
knowledge.
Mhm.
And then Sigourney Weaver also. So now there's two characters who were the two big deaths at the end of the last one. Um, Shout out to Natiri's dad. Sorry. Also feel bad for that guy. He's counts, but so
Yeah.
Sigourney Weaver's character, who we do see Sigourney Weaver's human actress body in a float tank situation, and it moves a little bit, but I think it's animated by her daughter being close in the way that this world things are kind of like when you touch a tree, it touches you back kind of thing. So I don't
Mhm.
know how dead Sigourney Weaver is. Here's the theory. I'm so glad I looked into this after the movie because that was one of my first questions. Was like, who's the dad? Just tell me who the dad is. I have a theory that we're going to have in one of the next couple movies a Star Wars type of like here's who the father is.
Oh.
Some Darth Vader Maury time. Um, the theory is that it's a virgin birth. That when she's in the tree, because to my knowledge she's not pregnant and she is dying, and it's very difficult to get the timing of all that
Right.
unless there's some scientific other situation that it's literally they tried to save her, they can't, and she is then given life by the force of, and now the name is escaping me, but by the force
Ewa.
of, thank you. Yes, and it is literally, and that to me, obviously, it sounds kind of bonkers to our Western minds, in that world, when they're trying to save her and they could bring some people back and they put Jake into his avatar body and melded it perfectly,
Mhm.
that to me is literally the most logical conclusion by the logic of this movie. They tried to do one spell, if you will, where they tried to save her. Instead, they gave her life. And I wouldn't be shocked either if it is the same character. Now, keep in mind, if that sounds bonkers, Stephen Lang looked at Stephen Lang's dead body while Stephen Lang was in an avatar body, trying to kill Jake Sully, who is still the same guy, also in an avatar body. Like, to me, that is the most logical and sensible theory.
Yeah.
And when I heard that, I was like, well, that's definitely what it is. And I kind of wish I hadn't read it because it's 2 movies, 3 movies from now, it's going to be like, oh, the father was Awa. Oh my gosh. No way.
Oh, they
So
were right. Yeah.
that's what I'm going with. Otherwise, like, we could get into some other theories, but they would all be so, because even the kids in the movie are theorizing, trying to
Yeah.
give them a hard time and saying it was, I forgot the actor's name, but he's the
I don't know that
nerdy,
that
tall
that dopey
guy,
guy. Yeah.
dorky
Yeah.
dude. Yeah. Which was in this one, right?
Yeah.
That was who that was who
Yeah.
came in. Yeah, there's a medical situation later. As soon as they showed up, I was like, well, now we know. It was a terrible idea to bring a helicopter to the waterland. We're not there yet. I'm sorry. I'm jumping ahead. That one
No,
throws me
it's
off.
no, it's fine. No, it's funny
He can't be
because
the dad. No, I don't
well,
accept that.
I loved
No.
how the kids were like looking back at like the older diary footage, video
Uh-huh.
diary footage, and how he was in the background and he's like always present in all of her diary entries. And then there was one moment where he kind of looked at her with this like little smile and all that. And like, see, he has to be the father.
My my next letterbox list has to be movies released in winter 2022 where kids look at video footage and try to figure out, are those two adults fucking? It'd be Fablemans and Avatar 2.
Nice.
Yep.
Oh
Just try
my
to piece
god,
it together.
that's
Like the
so
way he's looking
perfect.
at her.
Yeah,
Yeah, that's
that's so
definitely
perfect. Yeah,
like
doing all the
that man
investigation and all that.
cannot. I'm sorry. As a dork, I would not accept that. It's Sigourney Weaver, man. Come on. She was his boss. That's not right.
Right.
It
Well,
makes more
hey,
sense for it to be Awa.
if you are secluded in an area with no other form of life, and you have needs, we're all humans, right? So I get it. If the mood is right, strike it while it's hot.
If he is in a subdued state while he's in the avatar body, like, I don't know the physics of that. I don't know how that works. We don't need to keep theorizing about it. That's
No, it's
absurd.
fine.
It's got
But
to
yeah,
be. To me, it's that's my theory. So yeah, we definitely don't know. The movie did, well, it's not the deepest movie, and it's probably never going to be the deepest franchise.
yeah,
They do a good job at taking simple things and taking them to their logical conclusion. And in
hmm
this one, I think it's pretty smart, especially that they have. Actually, do you mind answering on this? Because while we're talking about what happened in this movie, what the
yeah.
future holds is interesting. Are the next few movies, how complete are they? Are they definitely coming out? Do you have a sense of that? Because I've heard different things.
Yeah, so from what I know and from what I've read, Cameron already has a treatment of the third movie. I think he already has it written out, and he already presented it to the studio. According to what I've read, and I don't know how truthful this is or whatever the case is, but the studio is amazed on how awesome the script is. And it sounds like, and they don't even have any notes for him. They said, we like everything that you've written, go forward with this. So it
And
could
the
be fantastic. I
re-release,
don't know.
someone did the math on the re-release, and they were saying, like, okay, Avatar 1 still had enough legs to make decent money. And they were going to say, we're just going to do it for 1 week, try to get people excited a little
Mhm.
bit, let the kids go see it who missed it back in 08, 09. And then that the re-release did numbers to where it was
Yeah.
near the top of the box office charts. I think it was either number one or it was like in the top few for a second. And so I think that the studio has faith, and like we said earlier, don't ever bet against Uncle Jim, James
Yeah.
Cameron.
Yeah.
He's just the box office master of all time. Him and Kevin Feige are just represent so many of those top spots. I I really hope people go see this movie because I just want to I just want to have them at least. It'd be so sad if it was a Divergent situation where I think it's like after the
Oh
second, third, they're like,
God.
we had another one, and we're not even gonna take it seriously as a franchise.
the one thing that comes to mind about that is like Aragon. If you remember Aragon, Aragon is a beloved series of books about dragons, and they were really banking on
Oh
that
yeah.
becoming a movie franchise. The first one came out, and they had plans for sequels and to turn it into like a universe. And they
Yeah.
pretty much quickly canceled every all their plans once the movie was released because it just flopped
Yeah.
hard at the box office. And I saw it, and yeah, understandably so.
Oh no.
It was god awful. Yeah, it was really bad.
Well,
But going
even
back to
Star Wars,
Avatar,
which made a profit and made bank, the
hmm
new Star Wars, they took a pause on it after there
sure,
was a couple of the side movies that didn't do so well, and after Solo, which killed me because I'm like, I really did like Solo, and I want to see all of them. I just like movies, and I like these movies. I really hope that nothing like that happens. And based on this one, I that's not my feeling.
yeah,
So
no, I mean,
curious.
and again, it's curious as to how they're gonna cover certain things in future iterations. Because one thing I really loved about this movie, um, we knew going into it that water was going to be a big deal, right? And all that. By the way, the water effects, I think Marvel should be taking notes because
Yo,
in Wakanda Forever, every time we were dealing with Namor and the underwater
oh
people,
yeah,
that water effect was horrible compared to this. I mean, the water effect in this movie was just phenomenal. It was just very, very well done. But we were introduced to a new tribe, and they are water Navi, basically, right? And you could tell because physical, um, their physical aspects are so different. They have fins. Their
big
hands and
tails,
arms are pretty much fins,
big
bigger
wet
tails.
tails. Yep.
Yeah, and it was so fascinating to see that and being introduced to a different version of the Navi that myself I wasn't expecting. I thought they were just meeting new Navi somewhere, whatever the case is, but no, this is like a different set of Navi right here. So I really love that aspect of it all. And again, being introduced to these new creatures. Kate Winslet played the Queen Mother of that new tribe that we were introduced to, and obviously she was opposed to having the Sully clan, join up with them. But then they served their purpose. Maybe at a certain point at a price. Because unfortunately they were found eventually, and they had to all go to war and all that. But that was really fascinating. Again, the children being introduced to the new generation of Navi and the Sullys, I guess, right? Because this is the story of the Sullys and all that. That I thought was very fascinating. The kids were all adorable. I loved every one of them had a certain
Yeah.
aspect about them that I really liked. And then of course the Sigourney Weaver, voiced child, Kiri, I believe it is someone who and very similarly to like what you said, a very interesting aspect to her because again, we don't know exactly how she was, birthed or whatever the case is, but just like how what happened with her mom at the end of the first movie as she kind of formed with Awa. She's part of the land and the planet and all that. Kiri has unique abilities that she can communicate with Awa, apparently, and we saw that kind of like coming out as she's, you
Hmm.
know, talking to
Oh,
the fish and as she's like kind of having, she's connecting to certain creatures and then you know they're listening to her kind of instruction and all that stuff like that, and it was very very interesting to see that. So in a way I guess this is like the Jedi of the family of the Navi because she has these abilities to be able to communicate with the land, communicate with the life forms. And I think it is because of her very deep connection with Awa, just like what happened with her mom and all that. So I thought that was like really, really fascinating. I mean, you caught that, right, as you were watching the movie?
oh, absolutely. And now I'm almost kind of mad because now if they were going to do a big reveal of who the dad was, I'm like, okay, now I know exactly who the dad was. The dad was definitely that tree for sure. Because that character had magical powers if you will, that no one else had.
Yeah.
In like not in to where I'm going like, oh, okay, this is just what happens when you're super in touch. Which, okay, yes, her adopted mother
Mhm.
was, like in this universe, you have a spiritual moment and one of the little floaty tree blossom thing will come up and like land on your shoulder, and like there is
Yeah.
interaction with that. This one could actually direct it, and that's telling us a lot. So we also
Yeah.
get the which it kind of reminds me of very actually multiple Star Wars characters, but the person who feels like I'm an outcast, I don't belong, I don't know who my parents are, that whole thing.
Right.
Then they're the ones who have special powers, and like
Yeah.
that definitely is what's happening here. I almost wish that we hadn't made this connection, that I hadn't listened to that theory. It's like now I know. And they'd be like, oh, "Really? We didn't want to tell you this because then whatever." That makes so much sense. That was a fun. I really like that character, and
Yeah.
there's a few really special moments when she's saving the day using that being so
Mhm.
connected to nature, to where it's not just a Ferngully thing where it's like we just need to protect nature at all costs. It's like literally we are using nature as a superpower to
Right.
fight the bad people who want to hurt our planet and our family. That makes sense. And also, you're gonna have to vamp for a second. It was a 3 hour and 15-minute movie,
Bathroom
and we're
break.
talking a lot about water. Got to have a tiny little bio break. I'm sorry. I will be
Nice. No, it's
right back.
fine. Yeah. No, but like basically to what Blake was saying, it reminds me of Charlemagne, right? Like I believe the quote was the army would be the trees, the rocks, and the birds in the sky and all that stuff like that. And I'm sure I'm butchering it big time, but that's basically what we saw here with the Kiri character, who by far is one of the more interesting new characters that we were introduced to. Um, who is voiced by Sigourney Weaver, and apparently, she is the mom and all that. But the another interesting aspect, again, and something that we brought up earlier, was it's generational. So now we are focused on the younger generation of the Sully clan there. So they have four kids. It is four, right? Yeah. The two daughters and the two boys, and just seeing how they are adapting to growing up with everything that's happening now on the planet, you know, being hybrids, and it was something that was even brought to their attention even more so when they found this new village and new water navi, and how they were called, freaks, and they have devil blood in them because they are mixed breeds, mixed human with Navi, instead of four fingers to have five, and all that. And a very, very interesting thing that is being introduced to the world now. So, following the adventures of the kids was very, very fascinating, and see how, Jake and Neytiri, how they were being parents and having to have to deal with that. Jake by far is probably the strictest father figure I've ever seen. Especially with the kids. And Neytiri, Neytiri was like a typical mom, but Jake was just like, you can't do this, you can't do that. And it was just a lot of like that controlling aspect. I guess that's the army in him, or the Marines in him, that's really like moving forward there. Blake is back from his pee break there, so
That's not what I was doing whatsoever at all after watching a 3 hour and 15-minute movie talking about water and it's raining outside. Don't worry.
yeah. Oh,
The,
yeah. Here in New York, we're going through our own way of water here because it's been
yeah,
raining nonstop all day. So,
I literally took a bicycle down the Great White Way to the movie theater in Manhattan, and in the rain, I was like, oh my gosh, I'm ready for this movie. Immerse
yeah.
me in the
Oh, yeah.
water,
Yeah.
baptize me in the way. The So he's strict, but he also I was at one point a dumbass teenage boy with a dumbass teenage boy
Sure.
brother, and
Yeah.
the boys kind of deserved it. When if we're gonna zoom out, it starts talking about the parent thing and his dynamic, his parenting dynamic with Neytiri. He's talking about happiness is date night when you get to get away from the kids for a little
Yeah,
bit. And I was like, yep,
yeah,
that sounds like a dad of four. And if we include Spider, they've got five. If we
right,
include the white
right,
kid,
right, right.
and then the and then he goes, but happiness can be fleeting. And I was like, is he okay? Is this like beer dad? Is he checked out? Like, what's going on with Jake? Do he and Ney'tiri need to go to couples counseling? But
Right.
no, it's
Mhm.
because happiness is fleeting because there was a new star in the sky, which meant the sky people were coming back.
Yeah.
They
Mhm.
then fire demolish a lot of land, birds, trees, everything,
Yeah.
and very sad. And then it just says 1 year later. And in that year, Jake seems to have been pretty fucking fed up with his kids, even more than he was a year ago. But it's showing this is some of my favorite scenes where it's Jake as the rebel fighter. That
Yeah.
was cool. Just watching them. Oh, hey, they're trying to send another Sky People plane down here. We're gonna mess it up and doing some guerrilla warfare. Always entertaining
Mhm.
to me. Of okay, the people with the different weapons take on the big bad machine guerrilla style. Like that was incredible to watch. But we also see right then, we're talking maybe 10, 15 minutes into the movie, the boys are being dumbasses, just going right into battle when they're supposed to be the lookouts. Which
Right.
to me, the problem is like, yeah, you probably shouldn't be putting yourself in harm's way, but also we need a lookout. Why are you abandoning your lookout post to go be in harm's way? And then one of the boys, which I guess there's some foreshadowing happening right there when we meet the kids. One of the boys he thinks is dead, and it's actually someone else, where he
Right.
sees the blood stain, and his boy's okay, but he's giving him a hard time. And I think any dad whose kids are literally throwing themselves towards gunfire, it kind of makes sense to be a little strict on him, a little bit harsh of like, what are you doing? And like, definitely not the strictest dad like in movie history, right? Like he seems like he
No.
wants them to stay
Yeah.
alive, and he's like he's more in the mode the military dad, but more like my whole job is protecting my family, and you fucking idiots keep. To me, there's a reading of this movie which I kind of want to if and when I rewatch it, I'm gonna look at every time shit pops off, it's because the kids went on a dumb adventure for no reason.
Of course.
Literally, from that time early on, the first
Mhm.
gorilla scene, the reason why the colonel even finds where Jake is because the kids are going on a dumb adventure. Then the kids go and they plug into AWA underwater. One of them has a seizure, and the helicopter comes to save that kid. One of the boys goes off with one of the turtles, and that caused a huge kerfuffle amongst the water people. And later on, like literally at the end, there's like two more to the point where the joke made by one of the daughters at the end of the movie is, "Oh my gosh, I got handcuffed again. This is terrible."
Yeah,
Like
yeah,
literally, they
yeah,
just kept
yeah.
going right back to the same mess. Now, it is a family sticks together, and we don't leave anyone behind, and we're going to go save our friend, even though our parents want us to get into safety. It's
Yeah.
always cool. There was a little bit of like the Deus Ex Machina of okay, now there's the kid is in the background. He can always come in and try to save the day, or at least distract the baddies. But
Mhm.
damn, we're talking like 5 or 6 scenes where these dumbass kids are throwing themselves in harm's way, and Jake has to be like, "Please stop, just for one second. We have a whole army, and you guys are all I ask you to do is stay at home or be the
Yeah.
lookout, and you just can't help yourself." So
Yeah.
poor Jake Sully seems pretty worn down at that point when we're getting to see him so many years later.
I mean, especially like when they moved on to the water village and they're supposed to be in hiding, and yet these kids are finding ways to just like expose themselves. And now, granted, they were also like at certain moments they were being kind of led on by the other kids of the water village. You know, just the
Yep,
typical bullying
true.
and all that kind of stuff like that. But it did lead to some eventual trouble as well. Like the one common theme again, the common themes of this film were family, understanding the younger generation, um kind of like the father son daughter mother kind of relationship and dynamic, but it was also about being different, right? So the kids, obviously, since they're like hybrid Navi, they're mixed breed, they're looked upon as freaks and all that. And then the younger brother befriends an outcast. I don't know what that creature is. It's like a whale like creature,
It's like the
whatever the
turtle from
case is.
Finding Nemo, the little California surfer
Yeah,
dude whales, for
yeah,
sure.
yeah, but the water village people have tight bonds with these creatures, and but this one was kind of considered to be an outcast because it was thought by the water village that this person was responsible for killing a bunch of Navi. But in retrospect, and the boy actually finds out after mind melding with the creature, is that no, this creature was actually in a situation where the sky people were hunting them down and he was trying to save them, but he was the one that was is who escaped and survived it all. But he was outcast from everybody because of all that, and the boy related to the creature because he himself also felt like an outcast because everything that he has been going through, experiencing, being different from the water village people.
Which Jake and the boy, and it's called a Tulkun. I just
Okay.
looked it up. And that one's name was Payakan. They are a pacifistic cetacean or cetacean species. Big ass turtles, we'll call it.
There you go.
Fish turtle thingies. But all three of those characters, Jake, the boy, and the Tulkun, have a thing in common, which is that they are have the best intentions but are drawn to battle and feel like they
Yeah.
need to fight. And that's another thing that which way later in the movie will come in super handy when we get to watch the hunters get fucked up by some of these
Yeah.
giant Tulkun creatures. That was really, really fun when they were like,
Yeah.
okay, we're not going to be pacifist anymore. And we saw multiple characters deal with that problem, which I was going to
Mhm.
add as one of the other themes of the movie to me. It's do we stay or do we fight?
Yeah.
And do we want peace, but we can't have peace? So do we seek revenge or and fight, or do we just keep running? And that those were like ongoing things, which I think will
Mhm.
probably follow this family for a while. But
Yeah.
that might be more of a theme for this movie specifically because at the end, Jake goes, "And we're gonna stay and fight. I thought I could run and keep safe, but when the fight's coming to you, you sometimes have to fight back." Essentially,
Yeah.
that's literally like the closing theme, and then it closes in on his face, and he opens his eyes.
Yeah.
Yeah, as far as the kids being different, the Tolkien being different, the kids being outcast, we literally have, which also might become, it is a theme in this movie for sure. They didn't fully spell it out, but when you look at it, you have this wide variety and diversity of characters where Neytiri is a Navi, and of that group that goes, she's the only full blood Navi person. We've got
Mhm.
Jake, who goes from being a human to a Navi, which I think the understanding is he's fully Navi, but he's got the five finger thing.
Mhm.
They then have three kids who are the same hybrid of Jake and Neytiri, who are pretty much similar to Jake in the fingers and the um but they are born that way, whereas Jake was transformed that way. So that's a third variation. We then have Sigourney Weaver's characters, Sully, their daughter, and
Kiri.
thank you, yes, their daughter, and that person is another version of all of that. And then we have Spider, the white kid, who's just a human who's raised in Pandora
Yeah.
among the Navi. And so there's so many different variations. And I think and then we meet to see people who's a totally different group in this world. And it's an ongoing thing, which was true in the first one too. Do we accept this outsider who seems to have the best intentions? Can we trust them? And I think it was a very pertinent theme of the first one is you look like the people who are trying to kill us. Are you my enemy?
Mhm.
And that's something that humans deal with, in various ways and have historically for a long time. Um, they really lay out the gamut of what matters. It shouldn't matter how many fingers you have. It should matter, your intentions. And uh, but I don't think they necessarily spelled it out. Like, look at how many different versions there are in this one family, including adopted kids.
Mhm.
I,
Yeah.
I, I
No.
do like that theme though. It's really sweet when the outsider it gets to be the one that has powers. I always love that
Yeah.
as a
No.
former nerd.
Yeah. No. For sure. Like again, every time Kiri was exploring her weirdness or exploring like her bond and connection to Awa, that was so fascinating for me, and that's why, like, I think she is definitely one of the more interesting new characters that we were introduced to, and I really, really like where they're taking her and when they're going with all that. Um, Now let's talk about the human aspect of it all. You know, again, the plunderers, the hunters, and all that stuff like that. The colonizers, maybe we should call them, because
Yep.
they are definitely back, and they are in the first movie they were after a certain material, which it looks like they
Unobtainium.
eventually yeah, it looks like they eventually got, because again, as the movie was starting, and as we're learning how Jake and his family is evolving and growing up, and then we see them come in and firebomb the place, and it looks like they finally got what they were looking for. Now we are coming across a new group of hunters who are hunting these giant turtle whales, whatever you want to call it, because their brain matter is actually used for life preservation and beauty purposes, because it's supposed to not
Anti-aging serum.
anti-age. Yeah,
Yeah.
which again is very, very close to home, because I feel like, whale meat and whale blubber and all that stuff like that is being used for similar situations, right? Shark fins and whatever the case is. So it's very, very similar to what we're seeing in real world right now. But
Those
they're
characters are very special. They're like soul sisters and soul brothers to the
yeah.
water
Hmm.
folks. And it's really, really tragic when you look at it, where they are the Tulkun are smarter, more philosophical. One of them is creating music, and then the
Yeah.
humans are going, yeah, let's kill them so that we can live longer. Which
Right.
is in some ways almost more perverse than the military folks who are just like, it's so gross in that way. Um, the those sea creatures, the Tolkien, like they have tattoos. They have like very
Hmm.
special close bonds. It
Yeah.
ends up playing a very big part in the movie later on, with engaging that group of people to say, "Fuck this! We're no longer selling out Jake Sully to them. We're going to now fight back because
Yeah.
you hurt one of our own." And best, it's the hunter guy saying, "Oh, they're so smart. How am I the one with the harpoon?" And then Jermaine Clement, lovely small role for the man. Flight of the
Yeah. Okay, that was weird. So yeah, so
Renee, are
something.
you there? Is
I'm
everything
here.
okay? Oh
Yeah, no,
no.
everything
Oh,
is fine.
phew.
Yeah, technical issues. Woohoo! Not everything is perfect. And again, this was an experiment. And at least we could see like how things can go and all that stuff like that. But yeah, we had a weird glitch, so the stream had to abruptly end. But we just decided, let's just finish our conversation. We're getting close to the end anyway, so if you are watching this, it's because we just re-uploaded everything. And thank you for your patience and all that stuff like that, and thank you for those who joined and was watching live when we were streaming there. But continuing the conversation, so we're talking about the hunters, and you brought up Jermaine Clement, which I think was really interesting and funny to see him there.
Jermaine, yes,
John Maine,
Jermaine
sorry, John
Clement,
Maine,
yes,
yes, one half
brilliant man
of
from Flight of the
Flight of the Concords.
Concords.
Uh-huh.
Loved seeing him. Not a big role. Could have used more. I think he's probably super dead based on what happened to their boat. But that was a satisfying conclusion for sure.
Well, definitely the one guy lost his arm completely, as it got ripped off.
Wow.
Very horrific, yeah.
Wow. What a scene. This movie was definitely more brutal in ways. And like the last one, they would show like a tree burning and it being very sad and people
Hmm.
fleeing it. This one, like, was a little bit more graphic and violent, especially if it is the more family oriented one.
Yeah.
I kind of liked it. I kind of like that they raised the stakes. And I think people are so much more desensitized now than they were for the last
Hmm.
one. Seen an arm get ripped off by a turtle who was tired of being harpooned, a Tolkien, sorry to the Tolkien community. That seeing him absolutely fuck up the hunter was so satisfying.
Oh yeah, definitely. But yeah, so I mean, basically, all those hunting people pretty much met their demise like towards the end there. And it was really interesting too, because I felt like Cameron kind of had his Titanic moment in this movie with
Mhm.
the big climactic ending as this airship was kind of sinking and flipping as it's sinking, and it brought back memories of Titanic there. And there you had the big showdown between Jake and Stephen Lang's character. What's his name again? I keep
Yo,
forgetting.
yeah, this movie isn't doing enough plot and character development necessarily for me to really pull it all. The fact that you got a couple of the kids' names, I was like, oh wow, very impressive.
Thank you, thank you. But Colonel Quaritch, I guess that's Stephen Lang's character.
Yeah, Colonel Miles Quaritch. Yes,
Yeah.
good call.
So yeah, they finally had their big showdown and all that. Um, Obviously, earlier on, we learned that I guess Spider is his son. Who he doesn't really seem to care that much about, but kind of does. So it's kind of interesting. I was really disappointed that the kid saved him.
Hmm.
Yeah, I was kind of like,
Hmm.
just leave him to die already. He didn't care about you and all that. But I guess Spider still had it in him to do the right thing and save him, but still left him after he saved him. So he's definitely still around. We just don't know what's gonna happen with him afterwards.
If you're Spider, you really want there to be another movie because that's kind of like all you got going on right
Right?
now. So it kind of is in your best interest to save the big bad, who I honestly thought, okay, maybe they die out now. And this franchise has shown they're willing to kill off
Yeah.
or at least kill slash reincarnate some big characters.
Hmm.
So far, I went into this movie thinking, okay, the stakes are real. If Sigourney Weaver's character and Stephen Lang's character can die, and yet both actors are definitely still in this thing in just like new ways.
Yeah.
I don't think that at least they're not killing him yet, so that might be the big bad all throughout the whole franchise.
Right.
I'm kind of curious. My other theory was maybe they turn him into a POW situation. There's a version of the next movie where he is tamed and realizes the error of his ways and becomes like part of the group. And we've seen it's rare, but we see movies do that sometimes where
Sure.
the bad guy goes, "Now I'm going to be your friend," and that would be comedy gold to watch him uh, have to be like a more like nicer version of himself and biting his tongue and trying to like be polite. And what was
Right.
that thing again? I'm doing my best, y'all. Sorry, like doing
Yeah.
that in his blue
Well,
face.
well, I'm sure he'll get humbled because now he has to survive on his own. All of his other Avatar army buddies are dead,
Gone,
and
gone,
they all
messed up.
died brutally
Good
too.
deaths,
Yeah.
great
Wow.
murder
Yeah.
scenes.
Mostly by the hand of Neytiri,
Yo,
because she went
seeing her
berserk.
mama bear when
Yeah.
she sad and crying because her boy dies,
Yeah.
and then he goes, "Please, I need you to be strong, please, please." And she looks up. I go,
Mm-hmm.
"Oh
Oh, it's on.
no,
It's on.
they are
Yeah.
about to get messed up."
Yeah.
And they had their two daughters in captivity,
Yep.
and so and she just tears them up. Which last time we thought Jake might kill the colonel, and then she's the one who actually puts the bows and arrows in.
Right. Mm-hmm.
And so this one, I was curious how they would handle that. And we get to watch Jake. Jake wins the fight for sure.
Yeah.
Colonel's down and out, underwater, should be dead, but gets saved by the sun. But Neytiri basically fucks up
Oh
almost
my god.
everybody else.
Brutally, like not given.
Proper good action.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
Th- th-
Like you said, like a lot of the stakes were definitely raised in this movie, especially like we definitely saw a lot more brutal deaths, a lot more violence. Um and I think you kind of had to do something like that to kind of raise the bar from the last movie, right? And it also you're appealing to a different audience now, from 13 years ago, right? So I guess it's like an evolution in a way.
That plus the last one, a lot of the deaths were just waiting till the big final battle at
Right.
the end, and it was the fog of war. And so it's the thing where you see 13 people get demolished over here, and then a tank, and then it's moving quick. This one was more intimate action scenes.
Yeah.
And some of my favorite things, because it happens early on too, where the kids go off. They see where the original final battle took place, and then
Hmm.
Stephen Lang is coming upon that also, and then he finds the kids when they're tracking. Um, that that scene when they're kids being held hostage by Stephen Lang, and then they have to get out of it, and
Yeah.
watching the family, kind of like Quiet Place type energy, with the family like silently communicating and
Uh huh.
knowing, okay, you need to come save me now, and we're going to be on the same page. And on the count of three, I always love seeing some good, coordinated, well communicated action scenes where, okay, at this exact moment, this kid bites him on the arm, this kid runs
Yep.
that way. Some really good scenes like that. And it was another running theme of the movie was the kids get themselves into trouble and they have to get bailed out. And that's a driving force of the movie. And then the other one being that the kids are being held hostage by the big bad
Yeah.
of Colonel. I almost want to say Quidditch. That's a Harry Potter thing. Sorry.
Miles. Just call
Uh,
him Miles.
yeah, our old buddy Miles.
Yeah.
Seeing them get taken hostage, and it is an old trope in action movies. We can't kill them. We need them alive, and we're going to use them as bait. So then
Hmm.
it just gives us a lot of good action moments all throughout. And so to where one of the daughters gets hostaged twice, and at the end, the oh no, I'm in handcuffs again. How did this
That was so
happen?
funny. Yeah.
And that's why Neytiri has to go back and just. I'm so glad the kids got caught another time because
Oh
man,
my
she
god.
fucked shit up.
Yeah.
Solid action sequence.
Man, she went bananas in berserk mode for sure, and it was just
Mama bear.
really really fascinating and fun to see. But yeah, so I guess we could just talk about how the movie ends. I mean, the one person that died that we know probably will not come back is the oldest son from the Sully clan. Unfortunate death as he was trying to save his brother and all that. And it was one of those situations that I knew it happened too. It's like
Mm,
as he dove into, you saw that he kind of got hit.
yeah,
And as he landed in the water, he was like already like holding himself. I was just like, oh no, don't tell me that this is gonna
yeah.
be. So it was, and that was a very emotional moment for sure because again, all the kids saw it, and obviously, the great thing that Zoe Saldana does as Neytiri in this franchise so far is that she can scream very well. She has this like primal scream that she does. We saw it when her dad died. We saw
Yep.
it when the first time the attack on the forest and the tree, how she was screaming like mad, and now with her own son dying and there again that primal rage scream that she does. It's like it's almost at this this time it's like a trademark of hers in this franchise.
Seriously, she's got to be one of the most successful motion capture actresses of all time. When you combine Avatar and Guardians of the Galaxy Avengers stuff, where in the box office numbers she is up there high, but if you went with motion capture only, you
Yeah,
don't see their face necessarily. Like, which actually I don't even know. Maybe Guardians of the Galaxy is maybe screen paint. I don't know,
I
but
think that's really
man,
her.
she
Yeah,
is
yeah.
okay. She is really good at that though, for sure.
Yeah. Yeah. So their mourning, they basically hold like a traditional funeral for the son. But then the movie ends with them, going to the tree there to kind of tap into Awa to, I guess, visit the memories of the son, because the consciousness is now within the tree, within the land, and all that. A very, very cute, sentimental moment as, Jake is being flashed with images of the son being young and then being an adult, being a teenager. And then, you have Neytiri watching it all happen. Again, one of the common things that you brought up was the Sullys stick together, right? And that was something that they realized even more so at the end that their family bond has to be very tight and strong in order to move on and survive. And like you said, the big thing that was like kind of finally realized is that instead of running and hiding, they have to stand up and fight. And that's how they're going to have to move on, moving forward and all that. Now, what is the big enemy that's going to be happening again moving forward? I'm pretty sure it has to do with Sky People once again. Whatever the case is, we still have Stephen Lang's character like somewhere. as he did his, Darth Vader escape from the first Star Wars movie and all that. But yeah, the Sullys are now accepted by the water people. They are now family with them. So it doesn't look like they're going to go back to the forest, or maybe they will. We don't know. I feel like the forest people kind of got abandoned by these guys. Um,
I hope they're okay.
Yeah.
I haven't seen him in 3 hours.
No, I mean, it was just really funny how it's just like, we got to go into hiding. All right, peace out, y'all. And
Ney'tiri's brother's in charge, and my assumption
yeah,
is this will be one of those where they round up everybody at some final movie, or at least one or two movies from now, where now all
yeah,
in the first Black Panther movie, where now all the different groups of people have to come together and fight the common enemy. Similar
yeah.
in Avatar 1, when all the animals and the Na'vi joined together.
Hmm.
I could see something like that. The assumption you made that the oldest son is dead is probably accurate based on the fact they had a funeral.
Yeah,
But also, we had a death scene for a couple characters that are in this movie. So that I'm curious about, but I'm pretty sure that character is dead. They have to have stakes at some
yeah,
point. And then the other one is like the next one might not be Sky People. In theory, it could be against another group. I don't think it'll be
sure.
like animals or whales or something like that. But like at some point, they might switch that up because it then becomes all sky people versus all not,
Hmm.
for all of the movies, and that would be. I would be interested if they switched it up and we saw a different version of fighting, and maybe the next one's not even a fighting movie. Maybe it's a nature documentary. Maybe because we definitely had a lot of nature documentary in this one. Maybe it's just like they're exploring. Maybe it's more of like an adventure comedy. Let's
Yeah,
see. That'd be fun.
an adventure comedy. Yeah,
Yeah.
that'll be something for sure.
A western. Who knows?
Yeah, maybe it's gonna be, another coming of age flick, where it's just like on Pandora, Boyhood or whatever.
Oh, that's good. Okay. Yeah, perfect. Just an indie drama of Sigourney
Yeah,
Weaver's character. Yeah, her search for her soul, and
yeah,
yeah,
and
probably
belonging and fitting in.
yeah, probably there will be some more big battle scenes. I'm assuming. I'm curious what the future holds on those. I I was looking it up because we were kind of speculating earlier.
Hmm.
They're basically planning on doing it every couple years. So December
Yeah,
2024, December 2026, December 2028 for 3, 4, and 5. And then also this year, James Cameron said he has plans for a sixth and seventh if there's demand, which honestly, if you want to spend your retirement years just pumping out avatars every couple years, what I kind of wish they did was more of what they done with Matrix 2, 3, where they are released a year out. And
hmm,
I think the Star Wars, there's different franchises where they'll just kind of like they film them together.
yeah.
I don't love the one where it's wait every 2 years, and then if there's a flop, you're talking like, or if one of them isn't as successful, like it can drag pretty quickly. But you also let the demand build up, which was kind of part of the problem Star Wars had. But
Hmm.
maybe in 2 years we'll learn who's really dead, who's alive, where they came from, and who they're going to fight next. Um, the Sky People one, because Giovanni Ribisi's character is still out
All
there,
still
and I bet
around.
that guy
Yep,
still wants to make money
yep.
off of Pandora. Maybe he'll fight the Colonel at the next one, or he'll have a new person fight the Colonel. Edie Falco's dead, right? That was another interesting, famous person who wasn't in it for very long.
Right. I mean,
Did we see them get wiped out?
first,
I thought I saw a woman get wiped out in a mech suit, but it might not have been them.
I don't think so. I think Edie Falco escaped somehow, but I mean, how jarring was that when you saw her on the screen too? I wasn't expecting her to
Yep.
be in this movie,
Didn't
and I
even
was like,
know it was her for a second because I was
yeah,
so shook.
yeah, I was just like, oh, look, it's a soprano. But yeah, I
You mean
was
Nurse
just
Jackie?
well,
I
or
really,
Nurse
I
Jackie.
really enjoyed that show. Oh, it's an HBO mini
Right, yeah.
television actress.
But I don't know,
You're
she may
good.
have survived, but yeah, there's definitely going to be another threat. It'll be interesting if they face a threat that's actually from Pandora, like
Yeah.
maybe an underground civilization, or some rogue Navi that we haven't been told about, or something like that. And then that's who Stephen Lang hooks up with and said, "Oh, you guys are poor and you're not having enough food and all that stuff. Well, I know who's taking up all the resources. We need to attack this group."
Ooh,
And
okay.
it becomes like a, Navi on Navi kind of battle royal.
Yeah, and at some point, in theory, Jake might go back and be like, "Hey, you remember when I was king? Can I get that crown
Yeah, can I
back?"
get
And like,
that back?
there could be some Black Panther inner fighting drama of who should be in charge, and they got to battle it out for the boss mode. It'll be interesting.
Yeah.
Could go a
No,
lot
for
of different directions, which is saying a lot for a franchise that's
yeah.
accused of being too simple.
I mean, and the fact that he already has what, three in mind already so far, so I'm sure it can go to many different directions. But again, very curious as to what all of you think. If you were planning to watch the movie, I'm sure if you've watched this or listened to this, you've watched it already by now. What were your thoughts on the movie? Agree, disagree with any of our takes on it? Let us know what your favorite moments were. Where are you expecting this franchise to go from here? Definitely curious. If you're not a fan, are you planning to watch the movie now? Or were you never wanting to watch the movie in the first place? Let us know all about that stuff in the comments. But as we're closing out this special Avatar edition of Movie Time that was once live and now it's not, as we about to say goodbye, Blake, where can people find you online?
I'm on letterboxd.com under the screen name Blake Wolf SSN, BLAKEWOLFSSN, where I gave Avatar The Way of Water 4 stars out of 5.
Nice. Nice. I think my rating would probably be in the same alignment as you. I think 4 stars is a good rating for this movie.
It's got
Um,
4 on Letterboxd in general, which actually surprised me.
yeah.
Metacritic has it around 70%. The Letterboxd
Hmm.
fandom is giving it high marks so far.
Yeah.
That says good things.
I again not surprised, especially based off the early word that I heard, and I read about when the screeners were being handed out and all that stuff like that. But as for me, Loki Geek, you could find me on Twitter, Instagram, all that kind of stuff, especially and most importantly on YouTube. Again, if you haven't done so already, hit that like, subscribe buttons if you haven't done so already, notification bell so you can get notified every time a new video is uploaded. Audio listeners, thank you so much for listening. If you're looking for an audio version of this and many other things that we do here, just type out Loki Geek on your podcast platform of choice where you can download this and all the other stuff. With that being said, I'm Rene. That's been Blake. This has been Movie Time. And we just talked about Avatar, Way of the Water. So thank you so much for watching, tuning in. Stay cool, stay classy, stay sane. We'll catch you all in the next one. Peace out, y'all.